Well, hi everybody. Welcome to Stratosphere Lounge. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and this is the 12th of December, 2019. For those of you who may be watching, oh, that idiot. Hang on. Let's try that again. Yeah, we're back. We're back to our normal standards of quality, which had slipped momentarily into relative competence, and I just thought it was time to put an end to that nonsense before it started to, become an expectation or something. So we have a big announcement to make, and I will make that a big announcement in a moment. I hope everybody's doing well. Hi from Florida. Hello, everybody out there. And I've got some goodies to show as well as the big announcement. So I guess we might as well just go into the announcement. Why don't we? I'm just getting my things set up here because that's the way it goes around here. All right, here we go. Ready? No, I'm not pregnant. That is not the news, Aesop. It's even bigger than that. So here it comes. Ready? Dun, da, 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 da. We've been talking about a Stratosphere Lounge convention for the longest time. Somebody approached me with an idea and made it exceedingly easy to do, which is why we're going to do it. And it is Stratacruise 2020, ladies and gentlemen. Stratacruise 2020. You can go to BillWhittleCruise.com. We are going out of Miami in May. We're going to be out there for 3 days. Scott is coming. I think Steve Green will be coming. And we're about as excited as we possibly could be. The price is really amazing too. I think it starts around $800. That's all inclusive. It doesn't include your airfare, obviously, but that's 2-3 days out on the water. We leave on the 15th, so we shove off at about 4 o'clock. Have a party out there on the deck, and then we're gone for Friday. We're gone for Saturday, and then we come back Sunday morning. And because these guys are so, it's Royal Caribbean, and because these guys are so cool, there's another little nifty piece of announcement for you here. Here we go. Hey, look at that. If you go to BillWhittleCruise.com now, you can reserve your tickets for only $75, and that'll be in place until December 25th. Plus, you've got 3 months to pay it off. I think they want to have the payments finished by February 15th, but that should be manageable. Let me do this real quick. Why don't I just go to? Why don't I just go to BillWhittleCruise.com and see what it has to say? Well, it turns out that BillWhittleCruise.com gives you a couple of options, but I'm in the upper left-hand corner. But you click on the Stratacruise button, and here's the general itinerary. I have to tell you, when they told me about the cruise and they told me how much time I was kind of contractually required to spend, I thought, these bozos aren't worth 90 minutes of my time every single day. No, they actually said it's really, you need to do like maybe, an event or two a day. But we're going to do way more than that. Way more than that. By the way, the $75 is not the cruise price. That's the price it takes for you to hold the cruise. But in any event, the cruise price is around $800 depending on your cabin. But that's all inclusive for food and all the rest of it. And we're in and out of Miami on the 15th. So here's the itinerary. Here's what we're going to do. Friday afternoon on the 15th, we leave Miami, set sail at 4:30. So we're going to have a launch party out there on the deck of the ship and watch Miami recede into the distance, which is an exceedingly pleasant experience, I might say, having lived there for 25 years. And then after that, we'll have a little meet and greet cocktail party, and then we're going to have dinner together, and then we're going to do a political roundtable with me and Scott. Scott's confirmed, and it looks almost certain that Steve Green will be booked as well. We got to make sure we got to make sure that we can book enough people for that. But I think it's definitely going to happen. So so that's a political roundtable. That's Friday. That's just a quarter day. So Saturday, we go to the private island of Royal Caribbean called Coco Cay, and you can tool around on the island and the water park and all that other stuff from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Here's what we're going to do during that day on the ship, though. We're going to do a Bill Whittle Now taping in the morning-ish. And if Steve is along, we'll do a right angle taping live. And then we're going to do Stratosphere Lounge taping later in the afternoon. So we'll be able to do that live with everybody. Then dinner again for everybody. And then the night activities will be a seminar, 2 hours probably, of us just talking about pop culture. Just kind of going over whatever happens to be in that thing. I'll talk a little bit about the computer game stuff, and I've got some stuff to show you on that too. And then on the night of the 16th, that Saturday night, we're going to have a star party out on deck. I've done a little bit of checking, and our mission will be to see if we can see Alpha Centauri. It is only visible from the southernmost point in the United States, and I checked the online planetarium, and it looks like around 10 or 11 o'clock on at that time of year. It's going to be as high as it'll get in the southern horizon, but we'll be at sea, so we should have a good clear horizon. And so we'll get a chance to see Alpha Centauri, among other things. So we'll do a whole star party kind of thing. And then that's Saturday. Sunday, May 17th, we go back. Let me just put this back up here for those of you who are coming in late to the news. Hey, look at that. In fact, hey, look at that. Then on Sunday, we're going to be going to Nassau, which it's certainly not Hamilton, but it's Nassau. Free reign is as the day before, from about 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. at port, and then get you back around 3:30, 4:30, and we set sail at 6. And so this is what's going to happen on the Sunday, on the 17th. We're going to do a Bill Whittle Now taping. We're going to have a VIP, kind of a smallish private event. There are VIP tickets available. There's going to be a Q&A session, pretty much open. Then we're going to do another dinner together, and then we're going to do another star party. And then last, we'll do a last call with Bill and Scott and Steve. We'll just basically do we'll stay up until we don't stay up anymore. We get back to Miami at about between 6 and 8 a.m. on Monday the 18th. So you can fly out on the 18th. That's my plan, certainly, to fly out on the 18th. And so really it's 4 days. We leave on the 15th at 4:30 in the afternoon. It's plenty of time to get there if you want to come in that day. And if you don't want to pick up another hotel room, I'm sure I'll come in a day early, just because if I go if the boat sails and I miss it for some reason, they'll have to raise the price. Anyway, so if you look at the cost on this, the guy who put this thing together is tremendous. Parker, this travel agent, it's absolutely painless on my end. So in addition to all of the cruise details, if you go to billwhittlcruise.com, you can see a beautiful picture of the Royal Caribbean's Navigator of the Seas. And plus, they have a solarium, pools and whirlpools, water slide, pubs, bars, lounges, surf simulator, scuba certification, original productions, theater shows, ice skating and ice skating shows, karaoke, a nightclub, outdoor movie nights, a casino and casino tournaments, bingo, live music, dance classes, blow-dry bar, cooking demonstrations and classes, sports courts and tournaments, fitness center and fitness classes, mini golf, rock climbing wall, laser tag, video arcade, a spa, hair and beauty salon, men's salon services, an art gallery, wine tasting, jewelry making, library and card room, and escape room, and shopping and youth and teen programs, and more. So, May 15th through May 18th, the first of many. I'm quite convinced of our fabulous Stratocruisers. Whoops, sorry, that's not what I wanted. That's what I wanted. So, hooray! How about that? It's long overdue, and a special thanks to our friend Travis, who basically came at me with this thing and just said, hey, you could do this. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And it is just, I just couldn't be more impressed with the guys running it, and with the cruise line and everything. It's really transparent for me. So I am hoping for 300 people, and anything beyond that will be gravy. So I'm, needless to say, going to be promoting Living Daylights out of this. Um, there, DP Wellman wants to know if there's going to be skeet shooting activities on the boat. There's none listed, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind if you bring your own weapons and just start shooting off the bow of the cruise line. I'm sure they have no problem with that at all. So, live taping of the Red Angle. We're still working on the bugs there. We just got it out in time for the Stratosphere Lounge. Uh, but in any event, it's just going to be a blast. Stephen Scott will be there, and I'll be there. And Eric says there might be a launch scheduled around there. We could watch it from the ship. That'd be fun too. So, some of these cruises, the celebrity hosting the cruise shows up occasionally. He does his hour in the afternoon and 90 minutes at night, and he retires to his exceedingly large cabin. But since we don't really have a celebrity on this one, just me, I'm planning to be there all the time. I mean, really, there's no reason for me to hide away in a stateroom. I love talking to you guys, and I've always had fun doing it. And so we will be hanging out during that. Will Natasha be there? Somebody wants to know. Will Natasha be on the cruise? As a matter of fact, yes, she will. Hey, Scott Ott weighs in. Karaoke or I'm out. Scott Ott, by the way, used to be a rock and roll singer, and I guess you still are, just not employed as that. But that boy can sing, and so yeah, we'll do some karaoke. I'm sure. I do just a drop dead Michael Bublé's "Come Fly with Me." There's going to be some alcohol involved with that, but in any event, it's going to be a lot of fun. And so before we move on, I'll just show you this really bitchin' graphic one more time. Stratacruise 2020. It's going to be at May 15th through May 18th out of Miami. You can go to billwhittlecruise.com, and the guys running the cruise have set it up so that between now and Christmas, if you want to buy somebody the gift of Bill and Scott and Steve, then it's only $75 per person to hold a room. The actual cruise price will depend on which cabin you like, but it starts around $800. That's not bad for 3 days, really, and everything included. So we're really, really excited about it, and you're going to be hearing an awful lot more about that. Cheryl wants to know if we're going to do the shows live stream or taped. My hope is that we can live stream them out of there. I'm pretty sure we can. Joseph wants to know if we can shoot video. You not only can shoot video, we'd love to have you shoot video. The cruise line is going to have a staff photographer on board. Needless to say, this person will not be of the quality photographer that I'm bringing. Nevertheless, it's always nice to have two on board. But yes, of course you'll be able to take pictures, and so we're gonna have a Facebook page just for this, and we're gonna be able to send pretty much constant 24-hour updates to the Facebook page while we're out there, and so there you go. Depending on how many people we get, we are comped a certain amount of rooms for however many people we get. I'm probably going to dearly regret this, but the thought occurred to me that if we have enough people and we've got enough spare rooms, maybe we could do some kind of a contest or something, or a raffle or a drawing, and comp the room for people who maybe bring the most people in, something like that. I've just undoubtedly shot myself in the leg. But in any event, I couldn't be more happy with the Parker, who's traveled by Parker, by the way. If you decide you want to have a cruise of your own, he'll set you up. And we were originally talking about doing it out of Long Beach, going down to Encinitas, and then out to Catalina. But that just seemed to me like, you don't even leave California waters. It just seemed more like a ferry ride. So we wanted to at least go someplace tropical. So that's what we're going to do. Anyway, so that's that. That's really terrific, and we're real excited about it. And you're going to be hearing an awful lot more about that in the days and weeks to come. Navigator of the Seas, my friends. So that's where we will be. Oh man, Rubber City Rebel says the Holiday Inn nearest the cruise port is right across the street from the Bay Marketplace, a good shopping restaurant in the good shopping restaurant bar area. Somebody's been on cruises before down there. Awesome. So that's going to be great. And as I said, Scott will be there. Steve, we got a room set aside for Steve, and you know we have to be careful about the money we spend. We got to cut corners somewhere, so we got a little inflatable thing for Scott, and we're going to hook a rope up to the back. We're not going to tell anybody, and we'll just kind of tow him along, and then when it's time to do a show, we'll kind of pull him in, and then we'll let him sleep out there again. Oh, somebody mentioned passports required. I am told, I need to confirm this, but I am told that a passport is not required if you are going from and returning to the same American port on a cruise. I've been told that a passport is not required for that. Needless to say, I will fill that in. I think they did say you need like a photo ID and perhaps birth certificate, but a passport is, as I've been told, is not necessary for this, and that makes it even easier, because God knows we don't want Americans getting passports for things that will spoil our reputation. So we're going to have an absolute blast, and chicken fights and all kinds of things in the pool. So that'll be really, really fun. Okay, so moving on. Scotty. Yeah, Scott just in the live stream asked me to just mention, parenthetically, that you won't be allowed on board without the thorough, Scott's words, generous cavity search. Can't take any chances with me, out there. Anyway, so that'll be a lot of fun. So I've got some other things to show you here. I'm going to be out on the water with some sick people. So here's some cool stuff. I have put all of the CG stuff for the, talked awful lot last year about these science fiction shorts and shown plenty of renders of things and stuff, and I basically put that away. Okay. Exnor says that passports are required. I will double check, so we will make that clear. In any event, so I was able to finally just kind of get back to that a little bit. It's been a year of software updates for everybody, and things that used to be unbelievably complex are now merely baffling. But the good news is that it looks like I'll be able to get this stuff into the game engine, and so I did over the last couple days put some work into refining this character. Now let me just see one thing here. I know you can't have a Stratosphere Lounge without dead air, so give me one quick second here, and I will see if I can find. I probably don't even have it. Yeah, this won't take long. If I don't find it right away, I'm going to give up. Come on. Nope, don't want to do that. Okay, let's not do that then. We'll do this instead. Okay. Well, this will be close enough. It's not exactly what I was looking for, but it'll be close enough. I'll just sort of throw one more of these in here. Hang on a sec. So when I started doing this, I started working on the characters. And you are going to come over here. Okay, you go over there. So this isn't the first iteration, but we're pretty close to where I left it a year ago. I'm going to go ahead and bring this in for you here. And show you how much progress we've managed to make. So here is an early version of what I was working on about a year ago. Come on, you should just jump in there. Why aren't you just jumping in there? Come on. Oh, you swine. Hang in there. Hang in there. Okay, yeah, good. You, yeah, fantastic. Okay, and you come in. What's son of a... Okay, hang on. we're going to get this thing, and I'm keeping the screen dark intentionally because I'm trying to build suspense. So there we go. We're going to import image. Yes, that's image. Yeah, sure. Okay. Anyway, how about that weather, huh? Sure is getting cold outside. Yes. I have everything else prepared, if you can believe it or not. This is one I just thought I'd throw in at the last minute, and that's why I'm having this trouble, because it's what I do. Come on. Here we go. We're almost there. We're almost there. Come on, almost there. Image. There we are. Okay. Got it. Sorry. Here we go. All right, there you go. So this is where I left the character more or less about a year ago, and that was about as far as I could get him. And in the last couple days, I've been able to put some work into this again, and things have just improved quite a lot. So here we go. I've got a bunch of things. I'll just say one more thing before we cut to this. I have been doing some work trying to do, the machinimas. That's where you basically record game engine footage and, cut it together that way. And Star Citizen has a something called face over IP, where a webcam tracks your face and moves the face. And I've honestly worked on that on and off in my spare time for almost a year, and it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. And here's what I mean by not good enough. When I say not good enough, what I'm really trying to say is it's not good enough. I've seen a bunch of machinimas. I've seen a bunch of these kind of things before, and you can tell a story with a machinima, but you can't tell a good story with one. You can string together a narrative that makes some kind of sense. I mentioned before that I saw this Star Citizen machinima that was kind of like Clint Eastwood out in space, Man with No Name. And you can follow the narrative structure, but it doesn't hook you. And the reason it doesn't hook you is because if you can't get a performance out of it, then it's just a puppet show. And so the reason I'm so excited about what I'm about to show you is this latest incarnation of the lead character in these movies, John Boyd, there he is again, has to be able to give emotions. He has to be able to have enough subtlety of emotions so that you could, tell an actual story and get actual feelings across. So here's a whole bunch of the latest renders, and I'll show you how far we've come since this one from a year and a half ago. So here we go. Here's the new John Boyd character. And I'm just going to tab through them. What I was doing with these stills was Boyd, not John Boyd, John Boyd. What I'm doing with the stills here is I was just looking for things that were subtle and conveyed some sense of emotion. Is there enough subtlety of emotion in this model for this to be able to work as telling a story? And I kind of think, yeah, I think there is. I think this guy looks pretty good. I think he's good enough anyway. Let's put it that way. So here's some more renders that I just did earlier today, and I just think it's getting there. That picture, take a look at this one that you're looking at now. Burn this into your mind. No cheating, but let me know if that reminds you of anybody in the real world. So just a couple more. And I got him in as close to the flight suit as they had in Squadron 42, so I like that picture an awful lot. I'll tell you, this is rendered. It's not out of the game engine, but that looks so good that I'm just so tempted. I mean, if the whole thing was done like this, I would be exactly like it. Hey, and Rubber City Rebels scores again with the win. So that's a great picture. Give you an idea of what we're capable of doing. I love this. This is my favorite pose for some reason. I just see a lot of character in that picture. It's a lot of emotion. Looks like Treat Williams. Yes, that's good. That's not who I was thinking, though. The person I was thinking of when I saw that last picture, which one was it? Go up. Nope, nope, nope. That one. Ready? Here's who I think it looks like. From Adam 12, Kent McCord, ladies and gentlemen. Kent McCord. Exactly right. Yeah, I think he looks a good deal like Kent McCord. And that wasn't intentional. It's not like I'm a Kent McCord fanboy. But I love that show. Actually, Adam 12 was a great show. We are now getting closer. Now the question left is, I've got this guy looking the way I like him, and I've got him created in this software called Daz Studio. Now I need to take that character I just showed you. I've got to move it into a software suite called iClone, and then iClone can send it live to Unreal Engine. iClone has a lot of animation tools that are very good, but its renderer is just trash. It just looks so bad that I really kind of stayed away from it for a while. But they've added a iRay renderer. But in any event, within the next several days, I will know if the thing that stopped me cold before has been something I can actually cross. Can I cross the barrier from Daz to iClone, and then from iClone to Unreal Engine? But having just seen a couple of tutorials, I did notice that there's like a one-button solution to stuff that took me better part of 6 hours. Yeah, and Eric Blake says he looks like a character. He does. He does look like a character. He looks like a guy. He's got his own. I don't particularly like that shot for some reason. That's the only one I don't like. He's got his own. He's got his own face, his own character, and he's just much more believable. And I like the face a lot. And I expect to be doing most of my talking through this face in the not too distant future. So anyway, you get the idea. He's looking a little older. Those renders, the gray suit ones, are from a couple days ago. Alrighty then. So that's the latest. Hey, David Booty, Orland, California. Didn't know there was an Orland, California. That's that. So now we shall move on to the questions du jour. You like that, honey? I said questions du jour. That's me being, suave. Thank you. Got the thumbs up. Okay, let's see what we're going to do. We'll do the Facebook thing. We'll also go back to, and we're going to also go back to our BillWhittle.com members only page. And people are saying hi, Natasha. So I know what this is all about. I'm not an idiot. I can read the tea leaves. So let's see what we got. We'll go to Facebook first, then we'll go to BillWhittle.com, and then we'll go back and forth. Why don't we? Let's see what we got. Come on now. There we go. Sarge56 says he's been watching the British election results and they're looking good. Have I been watching? I have not been watching. I don't have the slightest idea. But I'm not surprised to hear they're going well. I have been feeling more and more strongly, in fact, it's accelerating, that progressivism is on its way out. Not forever, because rust never sleeps, and neither do termites. But I do feel that that people have had enough of it. Looks like Boris is winning, so that's or has won apparently, big margin, good. So and Mobile Moto said we're going to vote until we get the right answer. That's what they tried to do, with the Brexit. The British public said we want Brexit, and the elites didn't want Brexit. And so they said, well, we've tallied the results of the election, and the electorate has made a mistake, so we will wait a little time for it to die down, and then we'll have another referendum, and we'll keep having referendums until the public realizes the correct answer, which is the answer we want, and then we'll stop having referendums after that. So if Boris won, that means that there's enough conservative mojo in Britain, and it looks like Brexit will finally happen, and couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of people. You know, of all the things that really kind of tick me off about the European Union, um, is their absolute insistence on having it both ways. So if you, as I mentioned before, this used to really drive me nuts. If you go to Wikipedia, let's say, and you look at biggest countries in the world by size of their economy, it turns out number one is the European Union, just slightly ahead of the United States. EU is number one with the biggest economy in the world, and then second US, and so on down the list. Well, first of all, when Britain leaves, they won't be. But more importantly than that, if EU is the biggest economy in the world, then how come the EU doesn't have an EU Olympic team and an EU ambassador in the United Nations? Why is it that that they would lump all of that stuff together, but they still have Britain's team and France's team and Germany's team and all the rest of it? It's just, it's just this kind of, it's like the A380. It's a big airplane that wasn't needed, that is now out of production. Boeing did it 40 years earlier and better. And a 747 is a better jet than the A380, in my humble opinion. And even disregarding my opinion, it's a better plane. So all of these kind of things, and so I'm just kind of glad that Britain has pulled themselves out of this, and I think the EU brought it on themselves because, in 2015 when Merkel brings in to 175 people in a German village that have been living there for centuries, and she has 175 people in this village and puts in 450 immigrants from North Africa, and then she says, if you don't like it, you can leave Germany. She says this to the Germans, who've been living there. This is what you get. And good, decent people like us and like most people in the West took it and took it and took it and took it and took it. And now, I think we're done taking it. Let's see what we got here. Oh, a related question from Dave Olson. I'm watching my lefty friends meltdown over the UK elections with much mirth and amusement. Haha. One went so far as to say he hopes Vladimir is happy with his results. As a matter of etiquette, just how hard should I rub it in? I would say rub it in until your arms are aching so badly that you think you're going to faint from the pain, and then hire somebody else to rub it in for you while you recover. That's what I would do if I were you. If I would have said don't rub it in at all if it had just been a question of like, well, looks like we lost the election, but that's not what you said here. It's like, looks like they cheated their way into election. So, yeah, rub until the genie appears. Excuse me. Dave Olson from last week also wants to know, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? I don't know. I'm not going to be engaged in that divisive issue, and God knows that I've gotten enough hate mail already on some issues, so I am not going to determine whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie, even though it's not a Christmas movie. Any thoughts on the ridiculous nativity scenes of Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus displayed in cages as if they were illegals, which they were not? Apparently this is a thing now in some locations. Okay. Whose aircraft carrier? China's aircraft carrier caught fire in port today? Oh, Russia's. The Admiral Kuznetsov. Anyway, he was a good man, Kuznetsov, the guy who was who the Russians named their aircraft carrier after. He was instrumental in setting up the Red Navy, and he began to get popular. So Stalin had him killed. Just shot him, accused him of being a traitor, and took him out and shot him. That's who they named their aircraft carrier after. Anyway, such good people and such horrible leadership. So apparently I haven't seen it, by the way, Susan, but I'm not surprised that there are now nativity displays with Jesus, Mary, and Joseph in cages behind bars because they're immigrants. And as you point out, somebody is not too fully aware of their geography. The great thing about doing this show is I can have it's like Siri, only Siri with transistors or even like vacuum tubes. I'll show you what I mean. I could ask Siri something, but I don't want to use Siri. But I will ask the vacuum tube Siri. How far is it from Bethlehem to Nazareth? Nazareth to Bethlehem. I kind of think that it's not a whole lot more than 20, 30 miles, if that. And needless to say, going from Nazareth to Bethlehem is kind of the same as me going from Sherman Oaks to, well, we'll get the answer in a minute, Encino, Santa Monica, maybe. That doesn't make me an illegal immigrant into 90 miles. Yeah. So 100 miles. Okay, great. So that doesn't make me an immigrant. If I go 100 miles north in California, that does not mean I'm an immigrant of some other country. It means that I'm still in California. And leave it to these people to put something like that better. You know, I mean, even you don't have to know the difference. It's the distance. You just have to know that that these people lived in Palestine, or whatever it was called back then. It was pre-Palestine. In the land of Judea and Israel and all the rest of it. So clearly they aren't illegal immigrants. Now, if Jesus and Mary had gone to Beijing, let's say, to have baby Jesus, and traveled 5,000-6,000 miles on the overland spice trade routes, and then had baby Jesus in just outside of the Forbidden City, then they would be immigrants. But as it turns out, no, they weren't illegal. And so your protest is as silly as your politics is. R.M. Martin Archer, did you ever watch the great Milton Friedman's Free to Choose? I think it would be fantastic if you took the same themes he did for each episode and made your own updated version of the series. Bonus idea, Alfonso Rachel could take the Thomas Sowell role in joining you in a discussion at the end of each episode as in the original. I have not seen much of it, Martin. I've seen a little bit of it. Milton Friedman and Thomas Sowell. Yeah, Bakersfield to L.A., beautiful. Exactly right. Thank you. Just back to that, by the way, for those of you who may be watching from the left wing of the spectrum here, if I go from Los Angeles to Bakersfield, that doesn't make me an immigrant. It makes me a non-immigrant. So I've only seen a few of them, but sometimes, I always wonder, especially since I'm kind of peddling all this stuff, I constantly wonder, am I right about this? I mean, what if I'm wrong about this? I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to tell people, I don't want to defend a position that's wrong. But then I look and I see Milton Friedman and Thomas Sowell both agree. I should rephrase that. I agree with both Milton Friedman and Thomas Sowell. Then I must be right. Same thing for Victor Davis Hanson. Victor Davis Hanson supporting Donald Trump took away whatever slim reservations I may have had about that. And they were exceedingly slim. And they were never comparable to the alternative. So in any event, Victor Davis Hanson is such a solid thinker that if you find yourself on the same side of an argument as Victor Davis Hanson, then you're right. So that's pretty impressive. I'm going to go through these and I'll head over to the BillWhittle.com thing. Dave Wellman wants to know, oh, and as far as doing the series, Martin, to be honest with you, I have enough problems doing my own original stuff. I don't want to borrow other people's stuff or repackage it or anything. And I try very hard to give credit when I am using something, and I try not to use things, which is why I don't listen to talk radio or Glenn Beck or any of that stuff. I kind of want to have my own unique, ignorant take on things. Oh, Scott says there's no new question thread on BillWhittle.com. Somebody, heads are going to roll. Somebody's going to be sacked. And then the people that are responsible for sacking that person will be sacked. No problem. That makes life a lot easier. So, Dave Wellman's checking if you plan on sticking with living in California for the near future. My fiance lives there currently, and I am seriously afraid for her well-being. And that's coming from top fan, David Wellman. Well, I have to tell you, David, I think in terms of your being concerned for her well-being, that would pretty much exclusively depend on where she is. Unless she's living in, a really seedy part of town, I don't think she's in any danger. California is, it's a people's republic, but they're terrified of, butter knives. So I'm not too worried. Van Nuys. Van Nuys look, I'll be honest with you, Van Nuys can be a little dicey depending where you are in Van Nuys, but Van Nuys is right next door to us in Sherman Oaks. Sherman Oaks couldn't be better, so I wouldn't worry too much about Van Nuys. My airplane was at Van Nuys Airport for the longest time, and I'm in Van Nuys frequently, and I never think twice about it. Sherman Oaks-ish, then she's fine. And if it turns out that there's a problem, I'll just grab my rifle and we'll head on over there, and you can thank me later. Okay, David Crehan, do you have a favorite foreign film? E.g., Das Boot, Fires on the Plains, Stalingrad, The Winter War, etc. Is there a World War II film you think everyone should see? The answer is yes, I do have a favorite foreign film, and the answer is yes, I do have a film everybody should see, and the answer is also it is Das Boot. Das Boot is perhaps the best war movie ever made, and if it's not the best war movie ever made, it's certainly the best submarine movie ever made. And the beautiful thing about Das Boot is that you really end up, rooting for these guys. And you really end up seeing the difference between a German and a Nazi in that movie. And it needs to be stated. It needs to be experienced, People need to realize that virtually all of I don't know what the percentage of, again, I'll ask the vacuum tube Siri. Siri, what was the maximum percentage that the Nazi Party had in Germany in terms of party members? I know they won some of these referendums with 98% of the vote or something, but the total number of citizens who were party members, I want to say, was somewhere between 4 to 7%, which leaves an awful lot of Germans who had nothing to do with the Nazi Party. Just a quick aside, Mobile Moto, who's I hadn't seen name before, but is just burning up the charts here. Just put down that they found the Scharnhorst. Scharnhorst. It's a German. Is it a pocket battleship? And I'm not sure, but I'd be willing to bet you it was Paul Allen's. Was it Kestrel? Paul Allen, who's gone now. Put a fair amount of money into finding lost shipwrecks and got a specific ship for that for the Scharnhorst. Scharnhorst, off the Falklands. Yeah. Sure, I remember that battle now. Is that anyway? So Paul Allen has found. Paul Allen's gift has meant that this one vehicle. I want to say it says it's not Allen's guys, but that's fine. He found the Indianapolis, he found the Yorktown, he found the Yamato, he found the Musashi, he found he found a lot of stuff, and he has not found the USS Johnston, but the USS Johnston is one of the Johnston and the Samuel B. Roberts would be the two shipwrecks I would like to see the most. But they are in very, very, very deep water. Um, but I would love to see them, and I'm sure we will see them. He found the Lexington as well. He found it all. I mean, it's amazing. In a calendar year, in the last calendar year, I think Alan's team found something like 20 wrecks. The USS Johnson is found. John C. Pershing says the Taffy 3 Johnson is found. Are there photographs? If there are photographs, very recently, deepest wreck ever. Now that is impressive. In fact, that's so impressive. We're going to take a quick break because that ship has an awful lot of meaning to me. That ship stays with me quite a lot. Hang on a second. Deepest wreck ever found. That makes sense because they sank out there in off the coast of Samar, and you're practically in the Marianas Trench there. How did I not see that? I've got to see this. Johnston? Wreck may have been found October 30th. Oh, come on. The Petrel, not the Kestrel, the Petrel. Oh my God. Well, yeah, Battle off Samar. Um, Fletcher class destroyer, but which one? It's got to be the Johnston. I'm looking at this because this is incredibly powerful news for me. The Johnston. Oh my God, it is just. It's like somebody put it through a mulcher, and just like through a tree chopper, and just spit the parts out into the ocean. Usually with a shipwreck, you see some kind of version of the hull, but this thing is just. It's just debris. I'm going to look at this in a lot more detail later. Thank you very much for telling me about this. And somewhere, not far from the wreckage of the USS Johnston, would be where the remains of Ernest Edwards is, and that man deserves to be remembered. That that was a skipper. He that guy, yeah, Captain Edwards. They think the rest of the hull may have slid deeper. My God. So, yeah. Well, I'm not going to get into the Johnson again because I was talking about it so much that it was starting to bug people. But in any event, that is exceedingly cool, and I'm looking forward to seeing that as soon as the show's over. So thank you very much for showing me that. How did I miss it? Let's see. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Das Boot. It's a tremendous story, and Russ Merson points out that what a movie that story would make. I have not seen the new Midway yet, which surprises me. I was really looking forward to it. Got a little held up lately, but I haven't seen the new Midway. Somebody said it was pretty good, but talk about stories that need to be told. The story of Taffy 3 and USS Johnston and the Samuel B. Roberts and that whole engagement. Needs to be told. And one of the things that I like about, one of the things I like most about that is that those get better every year. And that is, you could tell this, there are obviously better characters than this right now, but this is what I can do here by myself. And that's getting close. So, so if it turns out that nobody's told the story by the time I get this thing up and running, then I'm going to tell the story of Taffy 3, and I'm going to make it really, really, really good. Not that it needs any embellishing; it just needs somebody to find the story thread through all of these different things that are going on. By the way, um, I'm going to go ahead and say that the building of the Yamato and the Musashi was the greatest error in naval history, period. Um, period. These two super battleships took up virtually all of um, of the Japanese resources for those critical years. And the Musashi, I know for a certain fact, the Musashi was sunk without ever firing its guns at anything other than the airplanes that were coming in to sink it. It never even fired on a tugboat. Never even fired on a tugboat. So that sister went down and on its side of the scoreboard, goose egg. And the Yamato is damn near it. Yamato did get a couple of rounds off in the battle off Samar. Might have, and probably contributed to the sinking of the, what was it, the Saint Lo? No, um, the Gambier Bay, I think. So Yamato may have put a couple rounds into a jeep carrier, but most of that was sunk by the Japanese cruisers. So these two gigantic battleships that were supposed to take the U.S. Navy and sweep it off of the surface of the world, they never fired on any other ships. You want to talk about making an investment that didn't pay off? If they'd taken the resources, the money, the time, the steel, and everything that they'd put into the Musashi and the Yamato and put that into transports and tankers, that war would have gone on till 47, 48. Yeah. So Alan found. I think Yamato had been found earlier, or one way or the other roundabout, but they found them both now. And yeah, and AK-47 for now says that the steel in her hull is a treasure. I wonder how much money the steel in the Yamato is worth today. I wonder if the steel's still usable for anything. Undoubtedly, you could just melt it, slag it out, and find some use for it. Um, uh, anyway, yeah. So Yamato, the the Johnston was a Fletcher class destroyer that went after the Yamato. Uh, the Yamato was going to be Yamato and Musashi, but they sank Musashi the day before. Is coming over the horizon, and we've got these little puny jeep carriers, planes that don't even have any weapons on them because they're out of weapons, out of bombs, and they start running for the hills. And without orders, Ernest Evans takes the helm of the Johnston and spins it around and heads right into the teeth of the Yamato and all of these cruisers and other battleships, and opens fire and kept firing for about an hour. And he was last seen on the deck, the fan deck. They'd shot the steering out of the bridge, and he was directing the steering from the very tail. You could actually move the rudders on a Fletcher class ship by muscle power, but it took two men, and it took enormous um, enormous amounts of work. I mean, two strong sailors could do it for 10 or 20 seconds or something. They had to switch out. And he had a large part of his hand was blown away, and he's got that bandaged up with a handkerchief, and he's shouting orders down to his guys. His ship is just, it's confetti, like the pieces that we saw in that, I saw quickly in that video there. And he's just barking out orders. The captain of the Samuel B. Roberts saw him. I think the Johnson launched a torpedo attack, got into the middle of all of in the middle of the Japanese Navy, basically turned the Yamato around. He goes sailing back out to safety, and they realize, okay, we're not going to, these carriers are not going to get away. So after having launched his torpedoes, as a second wave goes in for torpedoes, Captain Evans turns Johnson around again and goes in again, specifically to draw fire from the guys that had torpedoes. That guy should be on. He should be internationally known, and I mean to do it. And the great thing now about the CG is that even today, given the photographs we have of these guys, we don't have to have actors playing them. We could get very, very, very close to their actual faces. We'd have to get somebody to do the voices, obviously, but nevertheless, yeah, Taffy 3 is a story that's going to get told by me someday, unless somebody does a better job of it first. Anyway, Yamato. I remember what I was going to say. The Samuel B. Johnson was, I'm sorry, Samuel B. Roberts was a destroyer escort, about two-thirds the size of a Fletcher class, and had fewer guns and fewer depth charges and fewer torpedoes and all the rest. And that's the smallest craft in the U.S. Navy, smallest combat vessel in the USS Navy. They called it the destroyer escort that fought like a battleship. It went into the teeth too, and the entire ship, the entire Samuel B. Roberts, weighed less than the turret, one turret on Yamato. The entire ship weighed less than one turret of the four turrets on Yamato. Four? Three? Four, I think. Not to mention all of the other heavies out there and battleships and cruisers and stuff. It's the most amazing story. Anyway, let's see. Moving on. Michael Wilson would like to know. 3. Yeah, I thought the idea of a fourth turret didn't seem quite right to me. We would have. By the way, Iowa class ship would have taken the Yamato apart, and the USS Washington, I'm sure could have done it too. Yamato threw slightly larger round, but the American round had more penetrating power. Plus, we had radar ranging, and that's it. Whoever hits first, usually in a battleship fight, wins. And I have no doubt at all that the Iowa would have eaten the Yamato for breakfast. And I think some of the slightly older ships like the South Dakota or the Washington could have done it too. I guess I'll have to go to World of Warcraft. I'd love to play a game like World of Warcraft, by the way, but World of Warcraft is a little bit too arcadey for me. But I like it better than the turn-based things. Dave Big Booty's hitting the road again. Hey, Dave, you have a good drive out there, and you'll be listening in. So I wouldn't recommend this, Dave. If you're on the road traveling and you're listening to the Stratosphere Lounge, that is more likely to put you to sleep than than a glass of hot milk at night. But it's your life, your truck. Do what you think you have to do. So let's see. Michael Wilson, at what point can this series of witch hunts and this impeachment be considered a coup? I would have said at the point it began, which would be the night of the election in 2016. Are the players on the left too large a group to be tried for treason? I haven't heard of anybody being tried for treason in a long time. But I don't care if they're tried for treason. I just want them to be tried for something. I just want them to be found guilty. I don't even need to see them in jail, although that'd be lovely. Right now, I just want them convicted of felonies. And this whole the whole impeachment thing. Even the Democrats are smart enough to know that if they're trying to get rid of Donald Trump, and by doing this, they're increasing his numbers significantly, not to mention increasing the enthusiasm of the people who are already on his side enormously, even they can figure this out. So why are they doing it? I said it was in the right angle. I said it's because they conceded the election. But it occurs to me that another reason is that the entire Donald Trump impeachment decision, I think, is there to cover the fact that people were actually talking about Hunter Biden and Ukrainian energy company, and not just Hunter Biden, as it turns out. I want to say Pelosi's got a relative involved with that, and so does Mitt Romney, and so do a lot of people. A lot of people. So I think the whole thing is just a preemptive, distraction. In other words, so finally somebody has done their research and found out that all of us have been taking money from this Ukrainian firm, and it started with Hunter Biden is what broke the story, but now people are talking about it, and it turns out all these other people are dipping into there too. I guess we're going to have to do something dramatic to take people's minds off of this investigation. I know. Why don't we accuse Donald Trump of being the guy who's been messing around with the Ukraine? That ought to keep people guessing. And then when he says, no, it's not me, it's just you, he sounds petulant, and that's how I think the whole thing works. But it is a coup. And, and I have to tell you, you know, I'm feeling better and better and better about it every day, and I've been feeling pretty good about 2020 for quite a while now. I do not see how they can win. I don't see how they can win. So, I don't even think it would have been close without the impeachment rodeo, but with it, they're going to get walloped. And after they get walloped, don't get cocky, kid. But after they get walloped, they're going to go even further crazy, and that's when the party's going to split in half. I think. I don't think you can walk them back. I don't think that they can walk that party back. I mean, you can't give up the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, and you can't give up the working class either. If you and you can't have them both. So since the left keeps moving left, further and further away from the blue collar guys, their entire base is split in half. I don't know what the percentages, but it's something like in half, and so you're going to end up with two Democratic parties, and we already have two Democratic parties. So Joe Biden is trotted out there with with the sticks they use on the hands to move the Muppets, and they're talking about Michael Bloomberg, the billionaire Republican, in name only. Is an indication of how desperate they are, and I just don't see how they can possibly. None of the blue collar workers in Michigan are going to go turn out for Elizabeth Warren. None of them are, and I don't think they're going to turn out for Biden. I think Biden is genuinely, absolutely, genuinely gone round the corner, and should retire with dignity. But it's already too late for that. Anyway, on and on and on it goes. But I'm feeling pretty good about it. Heather Dixon wall work, new Wonder Woman trailer. What do you think? Haven't seen it yet. Scott saw it. Scott said he thought it was very good. Bob Knife says that you can win by cheating. They can win by cheating, and I've talked to some people who really understand the math of this, and I'm inclined to say that they can, through cheating, swing maybe 2% of the vote, 2 to 3 tops. Now, that's enough usually to cost you an election, but I don't think they can swing it enough past what it's going to be. So, yes, they can cheat. And yes, they can cheat their way into stealing elections. But they can't steal every election. There is a margin of victory beyond which they can cheat. And I'm feeling pretty good that we're going to be able to do that. And I've never seen people as angry as I saw them 3 weeks ago and down in Newport Beach. I mean, I've never seen Republicans that on fire before. So anyway, moving on. Eric Blake. All right, Bill, after the tragedy of Alfie Evans, how can the Brits not support getting rid of the NHS and turning away from socialized medicine? Let's ask the vacuum tube Siri when the National Health Service was implemented in Great Britain. I'm going to say it was probably in maybe the late 60s, I want to guess. If I had to guess, I don't know. The answer will come up as soon as the gears have finished turning. But the British will never get rid of the NHS, and neither will the Canadians. And the reason they will not get rid of it is because it's their identity. 1948, that far back, really? Wow. Yeah, it was one of those post-war things that kept Britain in the Depression for 10 years. Britain was still in a state of poverty in 1953, 54, 55. They still hadn't recovered from the war because they took all the money that was being handed around. The Germans built factories and the British gave the money away to people and socialist stuff and all that. They're never going to leave it, Eric. What are they going to compare it to? What on earth could an average British citizen compare to the National Health Service. They're told that Americans, basically, if you don't have health insurance, you just die in the street like a dog. And, if you get hit by a car, they take you to a hospital. And if you don't have money on you or an insurance card, they just chuck you out the back door onto the other pile of corpses back there. So they don't that's what they believe. That's what they've been told. No reason why they wouldn't believe it. They've been told it so often. So what are they going to compare it to? You know, they have been waiting in lines for so long that there's nothing to compare it to. And this is the danger here. Is that the danger is the new normal. Um, so I don't think it's Mobile Moto, who I've not seen before, is just running away with this one with the live comments. He says, like Obamacare, once it's institutionalized, it's there forever. It's there forever in Britain. I don't think it's here forever in the United States. I think this concierge medicine stuff is the future. I really do. I absolutely think it's the future, and I think that's what's going to be happening in this country, especially if we get another 4 years. For those of you not familiar with it, concierge medicine is essentially where an MD, a GP, general practitioner, a doctor, you remember those from the movies, basically says, I'm going to ditch the whole insurance thing completely. I'm ditching insurance. I'm ditching Medicare. I'm not taking Medicare patients. I'm not taking insurance patients. I'm going to take 100 people, and I'm going to charge them $300 a month or whatever the number is. And I'm going to treat them for that price. They're going to prepay. It's not free, but they're going to prepay. And I'm going to treat just this 100 people, and I'm going to know them, and I'm going to be familiar with them, and it's going to be just like the old days. And then those people would also purchase stop-loss insurance, which would basically say, we're paying our monthly $200-$300 or whatever for the doctor, and that's great. That takes care of 90% of what we need, or maybe even more. But if I get hit by a bus, or I get some nasty disease, then the stop-loss insurance kicks in. I get $200,000, and then I go pay cash for the medical care I need. So I think that's the future, and I think not only do I think that that Americans still remember what good medicine was like, but I also know that that no matter how left-wing these young people get, and how popular Bernie is, I'll tell you one thing that I am quite sure of, and that is that Americans do not like to wait in line, and they won't tolerate it. I just don't think they will. Not those kind of lines. Not the joke about NHS is if you find you're pregnant, it's a 10-month wait to see a gynecologist. So I don't see how they can get rid of it. It's part of their cultural identity. It's something they cling to. It's like guns almost, Stoutcat says, heck, they tolerated it at the DMV. That's true enough. Although there are now private agencies that will do most of your DMV stuff for you. You just pay them an extra $15 or something, and they get somebody to stand in line, and they get your registration for you, and happy days. I'm out $15. They're out 4 hours of their lives, and that's awesome. And by the way, the DMV thing is what, once every 10 years for a driver's license, I want to say. Same thing for jury duty. That's not the same as this. So that's that. Do you think that legalization of marijuana... Oh, sorry, David Crean again. Oh, refreshing difference. What happened to the Tiemans, by the way? I worry about them. I think they've gone over to China and have taken over some kind of Chinese blogger. I'm worried. Do you think legalization of marijuana could have a similar effect on the U.S. population that opium did in China in the 18th century? No, I don't think so. For the main reason that marijuana and opioids are just, it's the difference between a spad and a viper. I mean, opium addiction is, is not only a physical addiction, it is apparently the toughest physical addiction. Being addicted to narcotics, opioids, is horrible. And furthermore, opioids build up resistance, which means you have to take more and more and more of them. And this whole idea of an opium den, which I'm sure couldn't have applied to regular Chinese citizens, but certainly maybe it did. I don't know. The idea that just go into a room, this horrible room filled with yellow fever and opium smoke, and then just basically waste your life away. It's a 18th century kind of a vision, but I don't. There are plenty of problems with there are not problems with the legalization of marijuana. I'm kind of a libertarian when it comes to these kind of things. It's none of my business, and since they're buying it anyway, it's not like you can't get marijuana. You just might as well get it out of the hands of the cartels and all the rest of that argument. So it's not the legality of marijuana that worries me. It's the fact that it's just the fact that so many people are smoking it. I mean, it doesn't bother me in terms of like the individual activity. Although I do have to say it bothers me sometimes when we're out in public and you're walking through a mall or something, and it's like you're walking through a cloud of fumigation. It's like, oh my God. The Halloween parade in West Hollywood has been known to have an occasional whiff of the weed every now and then. But the main thing for me is just I know, certainly when I was in college, I knew people who were potheads who smoked a lot of pot, and I never knew any one of them ever amount to anything. Apparently, Harrison Ford smokes more weed than a California fire, but he apparently accomplished things when he wants to. I just find it kind of sad. I mean, I'm not talking about recreational use. Recreational use for me is like drinking, and that's fine. I don't care. But people I know, or people who I know indirectly, who do an awful lot of pot smoking, are not winners in my experience. They're not the kind of people that I want to be, and they're not the kind of people that I think most people would want their kids to marry. It's just in my opinion, I'm going to get a lot of heat for this if this was ever seen by anybody outside of the circle of reasonable people. But I just think it's just a giant loser drug. That's what I think it is. I think it's just a loser drug. It's a loser. So let the love roll in. That's my personal feeling about it. That's how I always feel about it. When I see people going into these marijuana clinics here, which are more common than Starbucks, and there's no exaggeration there. I mean, there are everywhere in Los Angeles, everywhere. And I say, okay, great, yeah, there you go. And same as alcoholics, I guess. But in any event, let's see, moving on. How many do we have here? Since Eric Blake put out 7 in a row, I don't think we're going to get a chance to get through all of those tonight. We'll do a couple more. But I will do another Eric Blake question, so let's not melt the internet. They got Willie Nelson off of the pot, so there's hope. Yeah. Huh. Okay. Top fan John Frost, winter's coming. Wants to know what do you think California's communists' reaction would be to a centralized, federalized regarding Calexit, California leaving the Union? What do you think California's communists' reaction would be to a centralized federal government coming in to squelch the notion of a Californian attempt to secede from the Union? Would they feel betrayed by the power of big government that they hope to gain? Look, here's one thing I'm certain of. I discussed this before. There's one thing I am certain of. If California votes itself out of the Union, we will not see U.S. Army tanks bursting into Santa Monica, and we will not see U.S. Air Force jets launching airstrikes against Santa Barbara in order to keep them in the Union. That kind of thing is inconceivable today. Short of an all-out nuclear war or something of that nature, those kind of casualties, I'm talking about fighting to keep California in the Union the same way that they fought to keep the Union together in the Civil War. I cannot imagine it. I simply cannot imagine it. And so, if it turns out this says the left doesn't want a California exit, says Eric, but they may be right. First of all, it's not worth fighting for. You know, it's the most beautiful territory, I think, in the world. I really do. And I've been everywhere, man. But it's not worth fighting for. If you were to take all of this away, and let's just say let's say it just were to happen. Let's say that there were enough votes for California to like secede. I think the United States ought to say, okay, there you go. And then I would say, build a wall fast on the border with Arizona, Nevada, and Oregon. Fast. And then I would basically say, all right, you guys have fun out there. If that ever happened, I would certainly, that would cause me to, I'm not going to leave, you know. Let me rephrase this. I already am not living in America, but if you think I'm going to get a California passport and so on, you're out of your frickin' mind. I will just cross the border and that'll be that. It seems unlikely, but in any event, if they left the Union, I think that'd be swell. I think if they left the Union, ought to be crystal clear. Message from the president. Okay, there you go. I'd just like to make it crystal clear now, just so everybody's on the same page, that the United States Navy is no longer going to protect San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, because the U.S. Navy is out of there, and so is the U.S. Air Force, so is the Army, and so are the Marines, and so is the Coast Guard. California can defend itself, and if it wants to be an open country and have no borders, they're going to get a chance to experience that. And if the United States were to pull away from, if California pulled out of the United States and it became clear that California was its own country, you would see freighters filled with people coming to California, and that would be the end of that. You know, that would be it. So I think the best case scenario is let California completely fail. It's already failing, and I'd say it's a good scenario. So I said it's best case scenario. Just, you know, it's already failing, so it's going to fail and collapse. I don't think it should be bailed out. I think people should be basically saying to themselves, this illusion that we've been under for the last 40, 50 years has got to be broken by pain. But in any event, if California did leave the Union, I think California would burn itself out pretty quickly, and then all of the bad people would do something else, and then we could go in there and recover this territory, which really does deserve to be part of the United States. Although I have to say it is so comfortable here that I really think that's why California is so stupid. I've had a theory for a long time that that your physical comfort, your climate comfort, is inversely proportional to your intelligence. I've never met such stupid people as I did in Santa Barbara, because they're not stupid people; they're highly intelligent people, and it takes much more work to be stupid when you're highly intelligent. All right. I'm going to do one more, and then I'm heading home with my beautiful wife, who's patiently waiting there on the couch in the dark, waving to you guys indirectly. They don't believe me. Here, just see for yourself. Yeah, you can basically make out her ghost-like form in back of that shiny ladder. Either that, or I've managed to put up my artificial Natasha doll that I put full size. I put in the front seat of my car so I can drive in the carpooling. So last question will be from Mr. Blake. So with Warner Brothers, Joaquin Phoenix, and director Todd Phillips standing up to the woke scolds and SJW media over Joker, even to the point of Phillips lambasting them for destroying comedy. Is there hope for more people of influence in Hollywood waking up to the true nature of these people? Could his this enemy mine scenario potentially lead to a truce of sorts with us and an end to the new blacklist? Also of note on the subject, Ellen DeGeneres standing firm in her friendship with George W. Bush. Yeah, the Ellen thing with Bush is another stake in the ground on people having had enough of this progressivism, having had enough of it. The Star Wars community has gone from heartbreak to rage to bitterness, and now people are actually starting to talk about lining up in tickets to see the opening night of Star Wars so that they can boo the movie. Um, it's falling down all over the place. They've given it their best shot and they didn't succeed. Their philosophy is too. It's not even just too oppressive. It's just too absurd. And since their only way to show social status, which everybody needs, is through victimization, they continue to escalate victimization to the point where it's simply absolutely ridiculous, and and people have had enough of it. I don't think Hollywood's going to change, and that's fine with me, because Hollywood is done, done. Uh, Everything that comes over that hill now is useless. Everything that comes from newspapers is useless. Network TV shows and stuff like that it's all useless. Even stuff that's cutting edge stuff like Netflix is still, you can kind of just detect a kind of a whiff of it starting to go around the corner. The future belongs to individual content creators. The future belongs to people making small movies and distributing them either through YouTube or whatever. And the reason I say that is because I look at a lot of content, and I find myself just naturally realizing that the people who are doing work on the internet, individuals like me, that are working on the internet, are producing far more interesting stuff than anything that's coming out of Hollywood. Far more interesting. I've heard people, just in the case of Star Wars alone, I've heard more excellent storylines for Star Wars that didn't happen from Star Wars fans than I ever saw coming out of J.J. Abrams. I think J.J. Abrams, apparently earlier today, he said, I just delivered the final cut of the thing, and I don't know, maybe I'm not very good at this job or something. He sounds like a guy who's been beaten up, but he deserves it. He's taken an enormous credibility hit, and he was at the wheel when Star Wars was destroyed. I don't think Jar Jar Abrams destroyed Star Wars. I think that he was the guy driving the bus, the person if you had to put the single person on it'd be Kathleen Kennedy for sure, no question. But she didn't operate in a vacuum. She couldn't have gotten away with all this SJW stuff that destroyed the Star Wars franchise if people in the studios didn't agree with her on some level. And once it became clear just how badly they had destroyed this thing, then they started to try and walk it back. But walking it back actually makes it even worse. And the fact that Star Wars is destroyed as a pop culture phenomenon, and certainly as a cash cow, is disappointing for people like Kathleen Kennedy, but it's not the end of the world. In fact, it's mission accomplished. The one thing you have to understand about this, every time you think about people saying, well, these guys are so left-wing, but at least they respect the bottom line. It's not true. They don't. Take Kathleen Kennedy as an example. I don't know how much money she's worth, but vacuum tube Siri will tell me in just a minute. But Kathleen Kennedy, as an example, has more money than she will ever be able to spend. She's got more money than she could ever spend, and so money is not important to her. What's important to her is looking good at cocktail parties. That's what's important to her. And the way you look at cocktail parties out here is to stand up on the table and thump your chest about how much virtue you have. And so Kathleen Kennedy, surrounded by feminists and soy boys and all the rest of these genetic mutants that live out here, um, don't care about the money. They're all richer than hell. It doesn't matter to them. What matters to them is that they can go and brag to the people who they hang out with, because they never come in contact with the little people. 150 million? Yeah, okay, so that's enough money to keep you going. So yeah, like Rubber City Rebel says, the force is female. You want to wear a T-shirt that says the force is female? You're going to talk about force. You are going to force your views on people, and if it means you end up destroying the most valuable franchise in the world of entertainment, what difference does it make to her? It doesn't. She she has done what she set out to do. And I'm not going to go into all the details because I talk about this way too much, but just to summarize, and I didn't know this entire picture until I really saw what the rise of Soy Walker was going to be. But this is the final piece of the puzzle. By the way, I plan to be there on opening night or opening weekend because I want to go and see the reaction of crowds. I'll buy a ticket for some other movie and sneak it. So here's the thing. Looking back on it, I realized that they had to do two things. They had to destroy the existing mythology, which is the mythology of, look, I don't like talking in these terms. It makes me kind of ill. But this is how they do business, and so this is how we have to address this. The mythology of a young, white, straight male who goes from nothing, complete obscurity, to basically master of the universe through a long process of hard work and courage and individualism. Physical courage, not, the courage to stand up and announce that you're gay in 2019, which, would have been a statement in 1949. Real courage. So all the rest of it has got to go. That is the dominant mythology of our culture. Luke Skywalker's story is the single great mythological story of the last 20 years. Prior to that, it was Star Trek. But the first three movies they're virtually textbook hero's journey, almost perfect. And they're well made. The trilogy is great. And all you have to do is look at Luke Skywalker to understand how well those first three movies are made. He starts out as a nothing. He has then the darkness of the soul in the second act. And then in the third act, he becomes transcendental and wins the ultimate battle. But it turns out he didn't really win, because even though he blew up the Death Star and threw Emperor Palpatine down into the endless pit before the thing exploded in a thermonuclear reaction, turns out that Palpatine survived that. And that's worse. So it's worse than anyway. They should have just brought in Ronald McDonald for a villain rather than bring back Palpatine. But J.J. Abrams doesn't have an original thought, and never has, apparently. But my point is this. So you had to destroy that mythology. And the thing that I didn't realize until I really started thinking about the trailer for Rise of Skywalker is that once Luke was destroyed, and he was destroyed in The Last Jedi, I thought that was the end of the line, but it wasn't. The end of the line is you've hollowed out that area where Luke Skywalker used to be, and now they're going to put Rey into that hole, and they're going to fill that cavity with this toxic mercury of Rey, and they're going to tell you that the last line in the movie, somebody comes up to Rey and says, "What's your name?" She says, "My name is Rey. Rey Skywalker." Okay, so she's Rey Skywalker. So she's the Rise of Skywalker. So she is Skywalker now. So not only did they destroy Luke, which I thought was the end game, but they're more evil than that. They destroyed Luke, and they inserted this female into Luke's place. And by her taking his name at the end of this catastrophe, she is basically saying that they're all saying, we have rewritten the history. The Force is female. The Skywalker story that you're familiar with, it's all about Rey. who's this Luke guy you're talking about? It's always been Rey. It's always been Rey. And Oceania's always been at war with East Asia too. It's always been Rey. They have basically taken him out, replaced him with this entire new universe of theirs, with all of their values, and then they're going to try and pat down the ground and just go on and assume that this is the Skywalker story now. This is the Star Wars story. It's the story of Rey. The only problem is that is that they're so insecure. I used to think it was just laziness, but seriously, people like Kathleen Kennedy are, this is the only word for it, they're so unbelievably insecure that they cannot do what is necessary to create an interesting character. They're so blinded by their ideology and they're so insecure about it that they could have taken, that would have been a complete photocopy of the first three, but it would have at least been watchable. Rey could have been somebody who failed, somebody who had to work hard, get back up again, fail again, and so on. You would have gotten invested in it. You would have cared. But no, she's got all the power immediately from the beginning because she's a strong woman role model. And by the way, if you think that that's a good role model for kids, if you think that Rey is a good role model for young women, you're out of your mind, because Rey is magic. Rey has everything immediately because she's strong, independent woman. But magic like that doesn't exist. If you want to have a role model for women and you want to have a female character be a role model, then that person has to start out small and then they have to fail and fail and fail so that when they have shown the end of this story arc, you realize that hard work and perseverance pays off. That's a role model. And they can't do it. They're so insecure that she has to win everything all the time. This is the whole Mary Sue character idea, the whole idea of a character who never loses, who is born into incredible powers, no explanation for how she got them, and no real concern about it either. She's never picked up a lightsaber, but in the first movie she defeats the ultimate villain. She defeats the top boss with a lightsaber, having never picked one up before. She defeats the guy who's trained under Luke Skywalker for years. And so I'm sure that made Kathleen Kennedy feel good. But in terms of drama, so you beat the boss already and you don't have anything to learn and nobody can stop you. Luke Skywalker has to work for months so that he can try and raise a pebble off the ground, and Rey, who doesn't work at all, just opens the door, looks outside, and giant boulders fly into the air because she's so awesome, because she's a woman, you see, because she's a woman. That's why she's so much stronger. Okay, nobody cares. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about this character. Nobody likes the character. Daisy Ripley seems nice enough, but she's probably not. But nobody cares. They can't do it. They cannot do it. And the reason they can't do it, and this is the point I was trying to make, is that a Mary Sue character is ultimately the power fantasy of the person writing the story. It's not somebody trying to craft a story. It's somebody trying to craft their own ego and put their own and have their own personal weaknesses healed. In other words, the people that write and produce and direct these kind of things are so determined to prove this point that that they can't do what's necessary in order to prove the point. It's like, pick somebody. Trying to think of an example of somebody who. Let's just take a guy who's like really short. A person with sufficient charisma, it's not a problem. But there are a number of people, and this just, I don't mean to single them out. I just had to think of something. But they get to the point where they're so touchy about it, and they think that everything is about that. Everything's about their height, and they're so touchy about it that they cannot even bear to look at it. So they become the tallest person in the world, and they just drop basketballs into the hoop, and that's their power fantasy. That's their it's their ego boost. And so you realize that Star Wars has been ruined intentionally by 6-year-old girls. And it's not lost on people either. Feminists are not capable of writing a good movie. They don't have the skill. They don't have the skill, and they especially have too many insecurities. It's almost like these latest feminists are doing everything they can to prove the entire theory of feminism wrong. Now, Wonder Woman is not a Mary Sue, and Wonder Woman I didn't see the original, but looks to be a good movie, and this next one coming up, I've heard good things about it, because the reason people like her, that character, is because she suffers. She feels pain. She has attachments to people. She's got weaknesses. She has setbacks and reversals. So they're going to reap the reward for having done the work. But aside from the whole political agenda, I just would like to say finally that if you look at the last movie, and if you look at the last two, if you look at The Force Awakens and Return of the Jedi, and I'm sure that the Rise of Skywalker will be even more of this. If you just look at the writing, take all the politics out of it, and assume that there was never an original trilogy of any kind. It's just plain lazy. It's just, and that's the ultimate word for it. It's the only real word that really describes what's going on with J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson and all the rest of them. They're just lazy. They're not good at their job. J.J. Abrams is an okay director in terms of his ability to put together action sequences. He's a terrible storyteller, awful, and it's just lazy. This business of Admiral whatever her name is, the Star Trek character who's married to Lily Tomlin. This business about going into hyperspace and going right through ships destroys the entire sense of the universe. All the rules of the universe are destroyed just in that one case, and there are many cases like this. But the whole point of it is, it's just plain lazy writing. They couldn't think of anything else to do, so they did that. And I see it all the time. It's the same kind of lazy writing that portrays fighter pilots as like these swaggering guys, it's like permission denied. Oh, well, we're going to do it anyway. This guy, Maverick, you. It's lazy. It's lazy. They don't know enough about what the reality is, and so they take the cheap, easy way out. And the ultimate thing about this is, look, this is a well-known trope here, but if you're going to have a fictional universe, and you want me to believe in things like galaxies far, far away and lightsabers and Jedis and all the rest of it, you have to set up rules in that universe, and then you have to abide by those rules. You can't just break the rules because you're too stupid to think of a way to get around by following the rules. You can't just keep breaking the rules. If you're going to set up a fictional world, you can pretty much make up whatever rules you want to, but once you've made up those rules, you can't violate them. You can't have Gandalf just suddenly start to fly. Just levitate in the air. You can't do it. So you break the rules of this, and they just break it out of just sheer laziness. They're just bad writers. And I've seen not only Red Letter Media, but a bunch of other people too, have basically have gone through. There's a guy who I just discovered. I've been talking about some of these YouTube channels. Hang on. He's really, really smart guy. And this is why I said that there's nothing interests me coming out of Hollywood. All the stuff that's interesting to me is content created on the web. Give me 1 second, please, por favor. Where did it go? This guy who I'm about to find, is really, really deep. I just listened to a 30-minute thing he did on the difference between Eastern and Western styles of storytelling, and the guy's fantastic. Let me just figure out what his name is. There he is. Is that him?
Let me give you some advice.
Hang on. I want to say it's Literature Devil, but I kind of think that there was somebody else beyond. No, maybe it's him. Anyway, wow, this guy took a look at the first movie and basically said, here's how you could have made this work. Just to give you an example, this is not me, this is Literature Devil speaking here. But he said, look, so you've got Luke Skywalker, who's a farmhand, and you know he's a farmhand because he works on a farm, and you see him working on a farm, and he's taken care of and takes care of his aunt and uncle, and that's how he survives. And we learn from the aunt and uncle that he's got some skills as a pilot. But obviously, Uncle Owen is teaching, has taught Luke how to survive. And then you go to Rey, who has no mentor, no parents, no nothing, because that would mean dependent on somebody, and strong women can't depend on anybody. And so Rey has no connection, no background, no backstory, nothing. And what this guy was saying is, you could have done something like, in a very, very short period of time, you could have done something like Rey was either stolen or lost from her parents or sold into slavery or whatever the case may be, and she was adopted by an elderly Jedi woman who basically raised her from infancy, taught her the basics of some things, just enough so that you could buy that she's got some awareness of it. And then she goes off to fight some battle, and she never comes back. And Rey spends the rest of her time waiting for this mother figure of hers to come back, like she said she would. Now you got a character. You've actually got you've kind of got Newt in Aliens. You kind of got that story. I'm waiting for my strong mother figure to come back and save me. And any number of things you could do would work, but no. So I was thinking about this the other day. It's like, all right, so since the whole thing's just a giant ripoff, we know that Rey is Luke. We know that Poe Dameron is the dashing pilot, so he's Han. And that means that Finn is Princess Leia. And that's about right. By the way, another thing that this guy pointed out was that with Finn, you've got a guy who trained as an Imperial Stormtrooper. His name, Finn, comes from FN something, right? He had a number. He's trained. He didn't have the stomach for it, but he was trained. He's wearing the white outfit. He was trained as a warrior. And Rey knocks him on his butt immediately, like he's an actor. You know, it's just a horrible mess, and this is why I'm so confident. I deeply regret that Star Wars has been destroyed. I think there's going to be a revolution, a content revolution. I think fans now are angry enough to realize that even though these companies launch these things, and even though Star Wars belongs to George Lucas, it also belongs to a lot of other people too. And I think we're at the point now where fans are just going to say, you know what, just because it's made by Lucasfilm doesn't mean anything. It's already shown me that they don't care. So we'll make our own canon. Canon will be what we decide is canon. It's not going to be something that's got the stamp of Lucasfilm or anybody else on it. From now on, it's going to be what is true to the original source material, which is why Prelude to Axanar is canon, and in my opinion, and Discovery is not Star Trek. It's some kind of a science fiction show, but it's not Star Trek. And putting the name on it just doesn't make it Star Trek. Even this is the big lesson that everybody's learned in the last several years with this whole rodeo with Ghostbusters and all the rest of it. Even though companies and left-wingers own the title, own the franchise, if they're going to abandon what made the franchise, then the fans are just going to say, all right, not only are we not going to watch this movie, we're going to make our own. and that's going to be canon because we need this. And I think just two more things. Ryan Johnson famously said all throughout The Last Jedi, which is the film that really destroyed Star Wars. He said that we're going to subvert your expectations. We're here to challenge you and subvert your expectations. So let's just think about that for a second. You go to a Star Wars movie because you love Star Wars. And because you love Star Wars, you have expectations. And you expect those expectations to be realized because that's why you're a fan. For him to say we're going to subvert your expectations by giving you something that is the opposite of what you thought you were getting, I mean, what's that like in the world of business? It's I go down to buy a car, and I spend 9 hours haggling with the guy, and finally we come to an agreement. I sign a check, and then the guy brings out a tricycle, and I said, "What the hell is this?" And he says, "We've decided to challenge your expectations of what you thought you were getting in an automobile." Fans are not fans. Fans are your customers. They're your customers. You need to make them happy. It doesn't mean you give them everything that they want all the time. You can do things like no one would voluntarily watch the character they love get into trouble. That's your job as a writer. Get them into trouble, get them out again as a better person. But nobody goes to a fancy restaurant and pays $300 to get a Big Mac. That would be subverting their expectations. It's true, but it would also be the end of their business. This is your customer. This is why they're fans. They're fans because this is why Star Wars is Star Wars and not Ice Pirates, because this resonated with people deeply, and you don't respect that. You just seem to think that you can use that as a weapon to get people to think the way you want to. You know, you can sum up all of this outrage and catastrophe and the fact that they're done, that these progressives are finished. You can sum it up really in a sentence or two. Star Wars supposedly takes place a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. There are no current events on Earth in 21st century America that have anything to do at all with what happened a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And to make that bludgeon bludgeon people into what they should be thinking about on Earth in 21st century America is why it is complete catastrophe. It just, you can't do it. And ultimately, and this will be the final close of the closing, the reason that I think progressivism is finished is because I think people have finally come to the realization after decades of this stuff that these people have nothing to offer except that they will make sure that you never have fun again. That's the progressive promise to America. You will never have fun again. And that's what we're selling. So be sure to get out there and vote for us because we're not going to let you enjoy anything. If you're enjoying something, something's wrong. So, you can't, the only way you can make people follow an ideology that worthless and that disgusting and that unpleasant is with guns and the willingness to murder large numbers of people. And the progressives don't have guns and they don't have the willingness to murder people. They just have the willingness to murder ideas. It's not the same thing. Yeah. So anyway, Star Wars is still Star Wars, and people will make Star Wars movies, and I think after Rise of Skywalker, and given how quickly all of things like the things I talked about earlier and showed earlier are happening, it's just a matter of just months, if not a couple of years, before people are making their own Star Wars. And the proof of this is Star Trek Prelude to Axanar. Prelude to Axanar is absolutely terrific, and I think Axanar shows the future. I think Star Trek Continues shows the future. We need fans who are talented to make these things because they love them. And because they love them, they won't destroy them. They'll improve them. That whole Star Trek Continues should have been, it was the fourth season of Star Trek, the original series, as far as I'm concerned. So that's where the future is. I'm utterly convinced of it. And so because they use their politics to destroy these movies, now you have an entire generation that may not be conservatives, but they certainly hate the progressives in a big, big, big way. And they have accelerated their own inevitable demise. And the full impact of this will not be felt for another year or two. But when it does get felt, they're going to know it. All right, it's time for me to go home. 2-hour show. Hey, just a little bit under. I'd like to thank our members for making this show possible. Everything that comes out of here is provided for by a small number of people who are doing very, very big things, and we are grateful to them all the time. All of us are. And expect to see an awful lot more of this. We're going to be pushing this harder than somebody who owns a Yugo in San Francisco. And that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Lounge. Thanks very much for joining us. I expect we will see you right here next week at this same bat time and same bat station. So everybody have a good evening, and we'll talk to you later. Okay, right, got it? Okay, bye-bye. Hello. Oh, hey, Parker. What now? Let me just make sure I got that correct. You say that there's going to be a total of 2,300 people on board, but there's only lifeboat space for 30? Is that right? Well, yeah, I got it. Really? Completely private. No one can get to it. It's my lifeboat, basically. Mine. I'm the only person who can get on it. Sign me up, man. Sign me up. Yeah, no problem. No, they'll buy it. Sure. I'll just we'll Photoshop some lifeboats in on the picture of these people. It's not going to matter. Even if the ship went down, it wouldn't really matter. As long as if you're telling me I've got my own personal lifeboat, then okay. No, we're good. We're gold. All right, buddy. Thanks. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye bye.